Hi, I'm Dee.
And I'm Michael.
A year ago, we built a thing for Burning Man in the Nevada desert.
Specifically the thing behind us, which is obviously not real. More about that later.
The real thing is a 30-foot tall kaleidoscope with a spinning glass sculpture inside and 4,000 LEDs on the outside.
But what we're mostly going to focus on is how something like this can be done for a reasonable amount of money.
Yeah, we won't talk about the blinky lights. Nope.
We promise. If you don't know what Burning Man is, it's this thing in the desert in Nevada with about 70,000 participants. Lots of aspects to it that has to do with making things and presenting it, but we're only going to focus on art installations. And when we talk about reasonable costs for Burning Man art, it's actually quite high. We have here some examples. $50,000, $150,000 is not unusual.
The question is, can you do it for a reasonable budget? Let's say $10,000, which works out to be about 13 cents a visitor, and still deliver an engaging experience. There are a couple ways you can fundraise your project: using your own money, getting a grant from the org, or fundraising through the community.
If you want to create engagement and create a community around the project, really the last option is really the only option. I should also say, when we talk about costs, there are other challenges associated with it. Pretty remote, so transportation is a big factor. Things like pizza for the build crew. You need to deal with the fact that there are no services of any kind available, and sometimes the weather really sucks, so everything needs to work in that environment.
When designing the kaleidoscope, the team took into account transportation and assembly on Playa as two factors in our design. The symmetrical design was extremely efficient to build, and we used off-the-shelf scaffolding in order to make sure that we had a strong and safe structure. Just like theater staging, there are a couple places where you can cut corners. Cheap wood where your visitors won't view, fabric that creates a large-scale facading, ammo boxes for sealed electronics. Don't over-engineer the piece. It only has to last for 2 weeks. Perfection is the enemy of getting anything done.
There are obviously other areas where you cannot cut corners. That's foremost safety when it comes to electrical standards and anchoring to the floor, but also reliability. You have to do a lot of testing and add air filters to the generator, but also on the appearance on the outside, which is very visible. So you want to use the right fabric, you want to use real mirrors, and you want to use high-quality LEDs.
Fundraising is definitely a difficult aspect of building art installations. My best recommendations are: don't have followers, really have friends, create engaging experience like a key, and definitely do your fundraising in chunks. Those will ensure that you have enough money to complete your project before the end of the year and take it out to the desert.
The initial idea for a fundraising token was a small kaleidoscope, but that turned out to be just too complicated and too time-consuming to assemble. So instead we went for a necklace that has an embedded RFID chip, and that actually engages with the installation itself. So if you have one, it would change colors and patterns based on the colors of the necklace, and those were incredibly easy and fast to make on a laser cutter, so that worked out really well. So this is what we ended up with at the end. It's a 30-foot tall structure with a kinetic sculpture inside that encourages people to cooperate, to move it. And on the outside, we have 4,000 LEDs that can reflect different patterns, can also be sound active, and provide striking visuals. The other question is, obviously, did it actually work out there? And we can definitely say, yes, it worked.
The kaleidoscope was an accomplishment in building a large, captivating piece of art funded by the community and enjoyed by all. The foresight and planning made it easy to continue showing the piece at the Ventura County Museum and the Venice Boardwalk.
There was a plan to take the installation out to Burning Man in 2020, but then the pandemic hit. So instead we took all the design files that we had and simply made a virtual version. And now we have a version in AR and VR, and that also helps with engagement and to just keep the idea alive and engage people. Back to the original question, where did we end up on the money side? So we spent a total of a little bit more than $10,000 actually. And the largest chunk by far is actually the scaffolding. The electronic side is actually not that expensive. Turns out that LEDs have become so cheap we could have done for twice the amount if we wanted to. But the bottom line is, yes, it is totally doable within the constraints that we set at the beginning.
You don't have to mortgage your house or sell your soul to pull it off. Don't be afraid to try. The only thing you have to lose is chasing your dreams by building something beautiful.
See, no talk about the 4,000 LEDs.